December 29, 2017, at a residence on McMillan Drive in Oshawa, Ontario, Canada, Sean Farndon, a plumber, made a disturbing discovery of human flesh clogging the drains. Subsequent investigations on this discovery led the police to his downstairs neighbor, a 45-year-old man named Adam Strong, who shockingly confessed to having human remains in his freezer. But this was just the beginning of a twisted tale that had a deeper and more complex backstory. Whose remains were these, and how did they end up clogging the bathroom drains? Hi, and welcome back to Bizarre Cases. My name is Jerry, and today we're delving into a truly disturbing case from Oshawa, Canada, where human flesh was found in a bathroom drain. But before we get started, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting the bell icon below to stay updated with our latest content. Now, without wasting time, let's get back to the story. Located in the province of Ontario, Canada, Oshawa holds the distinction of being the sixth largest city in the province. Positioned approximately 60 kilometers east of Toronto, it enjoys a picturesque location along the shoreline of Lake Ontario, with a population exceeding 170,000. Oshawa was once renowned as the sole automotive capital of Canada, but has since transformed into an education and health sciences hub, with General Motors still playing a significant role in the city's economy. The city offers numerous educational and employment opportunities, and due to its relatively low crime rate, it is esteemed as a safe and family-friendly area, making it an attractive choice for commuters. However, despite this enchanting backdrop, in 2017, Oshawa experienced a horrific crime that sent shockwaves across the nation. On September 11, 2017, a disturbing revelation unfolded in Lake Ontario near the Oshawa Harbor. An 11-year-old boy, fishing with his grandfather, made a grim discovery when they noticed a floating torso in the water. Swiftly, authorities responded to the scene, recovering the severed torso and initiating a meticulous investigation.
On the 11th of September 2017, we received a call from some fishermen that were down on the pier.
They saw something in the water, and they thought at first it was a turkey carcass, and they began to cast their spoons. But once it landed on the cement pier, it became pretty apparent that it was the torso of a female.
They initially mistook the object in the water for a turkey carcass and cast their fishing spoons. However, upon closer examination on the cement pier, it became unmistakably clear that it was the torso of a female. After an extensive search by maritime units, they couldn't find the remaining body parts. A post-mortem examination was carried out, confirming that the severed torso belonged to a female. The precise cause of death remained elusive, but apparent signs of trauma prompted the coroner to classify it as a homicide. The absence of the head posed a substantial challenge in the identification process, mandating the utilization of DNA testing as the only feasible avenue for identification. It wasn't until November 9, 2017, 2 months after the unsettling discovery, that the heart-wrenching truth was unveiled. The torso belonged to Rori Hache, an 18-year-old pregnant woman from Oshawa who had gone missing in late August of the same year. Rori Hache was born on July 9, 1999, and she was very special to her mom, Shannon Diane. We don't know who her dad is, but some of her family members were involved in some pretty risky stuff. Her grandpa, Bernard Gendon, was famous for starting the Satan's Choice Motorcycle Club, and her uncle Harley Glendon was part of the Hells Angels, another tough biker gang. But when Rori was a little kid, everything was pretty normal. She was a really nice and smart girl. She had a strong connection with her godmother, Krisia Mieldik, who was Shannon's best friend. Just like her mom, Krisia had only good things to say about Rori. When Rori was growing up, she did really well in school and even became the Army Cadet of the Year in her local group when she was just 13. But things got tough when she started high school and got mixed up with crystal meth, a dangerous drug. She had a tough time with addiction, and it got so bad that she ended up doing things she didn't want to, like prostitution. This really worried her mom, Shannon. Shannon asked for help from the Children's Aid Society to get Rori back on track. Things started looking up for Rori at the beginning of 2017. She got a job, went back to school, and moved in with her boyfriend, Tony. Despite her past troubles, she was determined to make a better life for herself. But in August 2017, Rori told her mom she was pregnant and wanted to keep the baby, and Shannon supported her. Sadly, Shannon didn't know that Rori had started using drugs again. On August 28, 2019, near the Midtown Mall in Oshawa, Rori had an encounter with Constable Christopher Kane. Over the years, Constable Kane had conducted wellness checks on Rori and had earnestly attempted to connect her with social services to help her with her struggles. During this particular meeting, Rori disclosed that she had fallen back into drug use, including cocaine and crystal meth, and had resorted to going on dates to finance her drug addiction. Deeply concerned for Rori's well-being, Constable Kane committed to finding appropriate social services to assist her. Tragically, Rori had disappeared by the time he returned the following day. On August 29, 2017, the day following her encounter with Constable Christopher Kane, Rori was taken to an Oshawa hospital by a friend and her mother after experiencing a mental relapse. Strangely, they were unable to remain with her for undisclosed reasons and left Rori alone at the hospital. A mere 15 minutes after their departure, Rori decided to leave the hospital premises without receiving the required medical care. She was described as experiencing a mental episode during her time at the hospital. Her mother decided to take her to the hospital for a checkup, and the mother, along with the daughter who had brought her there, left Rori in the care of the hospital. For reasons unknown, Rori left the hospital before being seen by a physician, and surveillance footage captured her calmly walking out of the hospital. This marked the last confirmed sighting of her, and her whereabouts became unknown. When Rori's family and friends didn't hear from her for several days, their concerns grew. Her godmother, Christian, went to her apartment, but nothing had changed, and nobody had heard from her.
I went over to her apartment. Nothing had changed. She hadn't been there. Nobody had heard from her. I realized something's wrong. Terribly, terribly wrong. And I had a really bad feeling.
Fearing the worst, they filed a missing persons report with the Durham police, initiating a citywide search. They also distributed thousands of missing persons posters throughout the area, ensuring Rori's photograph was prominently displayed.
I made thousands of missing persons posters. There wasn't a place that you could go downtown Oshawa that you didn't see my goddaughter's face. I made sure that every post had her picture.
Despite their tireless efforts, Rori Hache remained unaccounted for until DNA evidence ultimately linked the recovered torso to her, confirming the heartbreaking truth that she had fallen victim to a violent crime. This chilling case took another unsettling turn in this peaceful town, and the nightmare was far from over. The police were still confronted with the formidable task of locating the missing parts of her body and assembling the pieces of the puzzle surrounding her tragic death. However, an unexpected breakthrough was on the horizon. Merely 2 months after the discovery of the torso, a couple residing in the upstairs apartment at 19 McMillan Drive began to encounter persistent plumbing issues within their home. The situation escalated to the point where they had no option but to summon plumbers on December 29, 2017. He was resistant to having any plumbers called and had attempted to snake the drain himself, trying to resolve the issue. Since no blockage was detected in the upstairs toilet, the plumbers sought permission to access the apartment of their downstairs neighbor, a 45-year-old man named Adam Strong. As they commenced their work on the basement toilet, a noxious and repugnant odor permeated the air, an experience entirely unlike anything they had ever encountered in their usual line of work. It was profoundly disturbing. The situation got even weirder as Adam started acting more and more upset. He was walking around nervously, watching everything they did, and asking a bunch of questions. The plumbers were getting annoyed with him, but they decided to ignore it. Adam said he was curious because he had tried to fix the problem before but couldn't. They might have just brushed him off, but what they found inside the pipe changed everything. To their surprise and shock, they pulled out something really creepy from the pipe. An 18-inch long, pink, fleshy-looking thing with hair on it. This discovery was so surprising and disturbing that it really freaked them out. Consequently, they acted swiftly, contacting the police to report the alarming find. In a matter of minutes, officers from the Durham Regional Police descended upon the rental property and verified that the fleshy substance was, beyond doubt, human flesh.
Communications.
I'm a plumber and I'm on site for a job, and we got we're snaking a drain, and we've been pulling back. We probably pulled back about 10 pounds, 15 pounds of it looks like flesh type of stuff, meat, and we don't know what it is.
They gathered vital information from the plumbers and the concerned couple, and subsequently, they initiated a conversation with the downstairs neighbor, a 45-year-old man named Adam Strong. During their talk, Adam dropped a shocking bombshell. He said, "I've been caught. There's a dead body. If you want the rest of her, she's in my freezer, and she's mostly without skin." The police arrested Adam right away, and they started searching his apartment. Inside, they found a truly horrifying scene. The apartment was filthy, and it stank like something was rotting. In the bathroom, they saw that Adam had taken out the toilet to try to fix the blockage. But the most gruesome discovery was in the bedroom. In the freezer, they found the body of a young woman, her head wrapped in a plastic bag. The body was very decayed, just like Adam had said. Rori Hache had a special tattoo that said "alive" on her neck. When the police checked the freezer, they found a human head with a tattoo that matched Rori's. DNA tests confirmed without a doubt that these were Rori Hache's remains. There was strong evidence that she had been in the apartment. Her blood was on the bedroom walls and ceiling. Adam's bodily fluids were on her remains, and her running shoes were wrapped in plastic with blood on them. The police also found some really disturbing stuff like tools, things for autopsies, adult toys, things to restrain someone, knives, and even a pipe bomb. Luckily, they made the bomb safe before it could be dangerous. There was also a weird package with Adam that no one understood, so they had to blow it up safely in the middle of an Oshawa neighborhood. All of this was part of the police's investigation into a suspicious death by the Durham Regional Police. However, due to the lack of direct evidence linking Adam to Rori's murder, charging him with murder was not an option. Instead, he faced charges related to indignity to a body. Understanding the cause of death was crucial to establishing these grounds. With this in mind, the decision was made to push forward with the investigation, determined to uncover the truth as they continued down this dark and troubling path. As the investigation progressed, the police delved deeper into the life of Adam Strong, a 45-year-old man who had taken up residence in the McMillan rental apartment back in early 2007. Not much was known about him initially, but the following days would uncover a chilling and sinister narrative of his involvement in Rori's tragic death. Adam had held various jobs over the years, including working as a film set security guard in Oshawa and as an employee at 2 different gas stations in Ajax. Those who crossed paths with Adam Strong described him as a peculiar individual with an arrogant demeanor, often believing himself to be more intelligent than he truly was. He had a tendency to ramble incessantly, never quite knowing when to stop. One of his former girlfriends, whose identity remains private, described him as abusive and controlling, echoing concerns shared by others who had encountered him. Even Adam's landlord, Eugenie Papadakis, had unsettling experiences with him. In March 2017, following the house fire, she and her granddaughter inspected Strong's unit at the McMillan Drive residence. What they saw was nothing short of horrifying. The apartment was in a state of disarray, cluttered with what appeared to be refuse, decaying food, and assorted items. Furthermore, it was discovered that Adam had a keen interest in BDSM practices. He had posted an eerie picture of handcuffs in his room, accompanied by the unsettling caption, "Home is where my handcuffs hang." Additionally, Adam exhibited an intense preoccupation with explicit adult videos and books, shedding light on his fixation with such content. These revelations provided a glimpse into a psyche that unveiled the dark and disturbing world within his apartment. However, these details alone were not enough to implicate him in Rori's murder. Detectives adjusted their focus, aiming to secure a confession. During the early morning hours of December 30, 2017, Durham homicide detectives Darren Short and Hermano Durango engaged in an interrogation with Adam Strong. At this point, Adam had already contacted his lawyer, and detectives recognized that this was their sole opportunity for a confession. His bail hearing was scheduled for the following day, and beyond that, they wouldn't be able to interview him without a court order. The pressure was on to get important info from Strong before it was too late. He said, "If you're looking for the rest of her, she's in the freezer." The detective asked him directly, "Is the person in the freezer Rori?" Strong replied, "I'm not gonna say," but he was shaking his head, which went against his words. When they asked about it, he just said, "No, never mind." They also asked if he wanted to tell his side of the story, and he said, "No, nothing." At first, the detectives weren't sure what to expect in the interrogation. They hoped to at least get some cooperation or information from Strong, but it quickly became clear that he didn't want to tell them much. Throughout the questioning, Adam Strong stayed calm, even though there was a lot of evidence against him. The detectives had a tough time trying to find out what happened to Rori. Adam didn't budge, and he wouldn't answer questions about his connection to Rori. The detectives tried different things to get Adam to talk. They asked him to think about how bad this was and tried to make him feel something, but Adam stayed cold and didn't show any sorrow or understanding for what happened to the victim or her grieving family. He refused to answer important questions about Rori or share any details. Instead, Adam kept changing the topic to avoid answering the tough questions, which made the conversation really eerie and creepy. They had enough proof to show that Rori Hache had been in his apartment, but they wanted to find out the whole truth about what had happened to her. Unfortunately, Adam Strong was more difficult to deal with than they expected. He wouldn't say anything about Rori, no matter what they asked. Even when they showed him pictures of the victim, he didn't seem to care. The detectives tried to talk to him about what happened, but that didn't work. They even tried to be friendly, offering him food and making small talk, but he didn't want to talk about the murder. As the bail hearing was getting closer, they tried to befriend Adam by sharing a meal and having a friendly chat, but he still didn't want to talk about anything related to the case. It was clear that he wasn't going to open up. The detectives kept questioning Adam for hours, but he didn't say anything, and they realized they were getting nowhere. They had more questions than answers. Eventually, they had to stop the interrogation because they weren't making any progress. The mystery of how Rori Hache and Adam Strong got connected still had no answer. Luckily, they didn't let Adam out on bail, so he stayed in custody. They kept searching Adam's home, hoping to find more evidence and clues. The authorities took away Adam's boat and asked the public for any info about his activities on Lake Ontario. Rori's post-mortem report gave some information about her case. She had several injuries, including broken bones in her head, but they weren't sure if these happened before or after she died. They'd also found drugs in her system when she died, and her body showed signs of being restrained. Inside the house, detectives found something important, a bent hammer with Rori's DNA on it. This suggested it might be the murder weapon. They kept looking for clues, hoping to find something that would reveal what really happened to Rori. Then, in July 2017, which was 7 months after they first arrested Adam Strong, they found something shocking. In one of the kitchen drawers in his home, they found a special hunting knife used for cutting and skinning animals. Even more shocking, this knife had human tissue on it. When they checked the DNA on the knife, it turned out not to be Rori's but instead belonged to another missing woman, Candace Fitzpatrick. Candace Fitzpatrick was born on February 3, 1989, and her life had a lot of secrets. Her early years were a bit of a mystery because her parents split up, and she stayed with her mom in Oshawa. As she grew up, her life got really messy. Candace had a tough time, and she disappeared from home, which worried her dad, William Fitzpatrick. By the time she turned 19 in 2008, things had gotten even worse. Like Rori Hache, she had problems with addiction and did things she didn't want to, like selling herself to get drugs. She'd often be gone for a long time. But in March 2008, she disappeared for the last time. Her dad, William, looked everywhere for her in Oshawa. They even made a Facebook group with almost 1,200 people to try to find her. Strangely, Candace wasn't reported missing to the police until 2010, which was 2 years after she vanished. William had talked to the police a bunch of times in 2008, but because of Candace's lifestyle and habits, they didn't take it seriously. After 10 years of not knowing what happened to Candace Fitzpatrick, her family got the terrible news they had always feared. Both these women not only had difficult lives, but also looked very much alike. They were both small and had long brown hair, making them almost identical. Surprisingly, even though they disappeared 10 years apart, they both suffered the same terrible fate at the hands of the same person. It's unfortunate to think that if Adam had been caught after Candace's tragic death, Rori might still be alive today. Candace's remains were never found, and the only person who could reveal the truth was Adam. Now that they charged Adam with first-degree murder for both Rori Hache and Candace Fitzpatrick, the detectives had one more chance to question him. The decision to drop the initial charges and bring new ones was a risky move for the prosecutors. While they were sure about the charge of mistreating a body, they didn't have enough evidence to prove premeditated murder. This put a lot of pressure on the upcoming interview because it was their only chance to talk to Strong and gather important evidence. If this interview didn't go well, he might be released. Realizing how serious this was, the Durham Police Department brought in Detective Paul Mitten, who was known for handling tough cases and was good at interviews. He prepared for the interview by looking at Strong's previous interrogation, where Strong was skilled at avoiding direct questions. With these new developments, Adam Strong was now possibly facing first-degree murder charges for both Rori Hache and Candace Fitzpatrick. Detective Paul Mitten, known for his skills in handling complex cases, conducted this important interview. On November 18, 2018, 11 months after the initial interrogation, Adam Strong sat down for another crucial interview. To Detective Mitten's surprise, Adam began by sharing information about his treatment in jail, stating that he was treated well in prison. Detective Mitten saw this as a positive sign indicating Adam's willingness to engage in conversation, even though he hadn't yet broached the subject of the case. Drawing from his knowledge of Adam's temperament, gathered from the previous interview, he understood the importance of building rapport and gaining Adam's trust before delving into the sensitive details of the interrogation. With a bridge of understanding firmly in place between them, Detective Mitten was quick to oblige when Adam requested food. Detective Mitten sensed that it was the right time to start discussing the case. The chilling lack of remorse in Adam's demeanor during the interrogation as he discussed his actions would have left any other human being shocked and appalled. However, Detective Mitten knew better than to react to his words and continued the interrogation. In an unsettling turn of events, Adam Strong vehemently maintained his denial of Rori's pregnancy. He went as far as confessing to handling her reproductive organs, asserting that she was not carrying a child at the time of her death. This obsession with proving himself right, rather than accepting responsibility for his actions, exposed a disturbing facet of his character, a complete disregard for human life. As Adam tried to prove his innocence, he accidentally let out some details he hadn't meant to share. This was a big moment in the case because it was the first time he said something that could make him look guilty of the murders. Surprisingly, as the interview went on, Adam kept letting out these bits of information, which made Detective Mitten pretty happy because it meant they were making progress in the investigation. After talking to Adam for 8 hours, Detective Paul Mitten decided to change his approach a bit. He showed Adam all the evidence they had collected against him. What was really surprising during this interview was not just that Adam was interested in the evidence, but how enthusiastic he seemed about it. It was almost hard to believe. Mitten was really good at keeping him involved in the conversation. Adam believed the conversation was only about cutting up the bodies and didn't realize that the small things he was saying were actually giving the detectives important clues about what really happened in these terrible crimes. After 10 hours, Detective Paul Mitten ended the interview, thinking he had gathered all the information he needed. There wasn't a clear confession where he directly talked about the murders, but there were a lot of things he said that made him look guilty. In the end, he probably wished he hadn't said so much. On September 28, 2020, which was 12 years after the trial and sentencing, that happened 3 years after Rori went missing and 12 years after Candace disappeared, Adam Strong went on trial for both of these murders. Even though there was a lot of evidence against him, he said he wasn't guilty of both charges. During the trial, the prosecution carefully showed lots of evidence, including the scary interrogation video, to make their case against Adam Strong. They also had 5 women testify who had been hurt by him, which made their case stronger. Even though Adam didn't explain exactly how Rori died in the interview, the prosecution came up with their ideas based on the evidence they had. According to the prosecution's account, Adam lured Rori to his home with the promise of money for intimate relations. Once inside, he restrained her in a disturbing BDSM-style contraption and brutally assaulted her with a hammer found in his home. Unfortunately, no one was living upstairs at the time to hear her screams. After her tragic death, he dismembered her lifeless body and disposed of the torso in Oshawa Harbor. Cell phone data placed Adam in the area on September 4, 2017, a week before Rori's torso was found, further adding to the mounting evidence against him. The prosecution believed that Candace had likely met a similar fate at the hands of Adam, even though they hadn't found her remains yet. On the other hand, the defense argued that Adam wasn't involved in Rori's murder. They said she died from an overdose, and Adam only got rid of her body. For Candace, the defense said there wasn't enough proof to show she died in Adam's place. They also questioned whether the freezer could hold the remains of 2 victims. However, after looking at all the evidence closely, Judge Mr. Joseph DeLuca was sure about Adam Strong's guilt in the murders. He didn't buy the defense's other explanations and thought the evidence the prosecution had was really strong and made Adam look guilty. During the court hearings, Adam tried to blame his actions on a troubled childhood. He said he went through a terrible assault when he was just 4, and it really messed him up. He claimed that the bad stuff from his past made him think and do harmful things. He said he was sorry to the victims' families, but his words didn't seem sincere. Throughout the trial, he didn't show any remorse and didn't seem to care about the lives he had taken. The evidence in Adam Strong's trial made it clear that he knew exactly how serious his actions were and how much harm he had caused. He didn't seem to feel bad about what he did. In fact, he thought going to prison was a good way to deal with his own problems, like being lonely and having money troubles. He was okay with giving up his freedom to get the basics of life in prison. In Canada, the law allows for first-degree murder charges in different situations, like planned murder, cases involving police or prison workers, and murders that happen during other serious crimes such as assault, kidnapping, or terrorism. But sometimes, if there's a strong case that the person acted out of sudden anger because of provocation, a murder charge might be reduced to manslaughter. The court decided that Rori Hache died during an assault, so Adam Strong was found guilty of first-degree murder in her case because she died while a sexual act was happening and had head injuries from being hit. However, because Candace Fitzpatrick's body was never found, and although it's possible she suffered the same fate, the court wasn't completely convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that she was murdered, so they charged Adam with the lesser crime of manslaughter in her case. In May 2021, Adam Strong was given a life sentence for the first-degree murder of Rori Hache. Additionally, he got an 18-year prison term for Candace Fitzpatrick's killing, and these sentences were served at the same time, meaning he'll spend both sentences together. This was the toughest sentence allowed by the country's laws. Just before being taken to prison, the judge told Strong, "Your time in front of us is over. You're going to prison now. You'll never be seen in public again. Eventually, people will forget about you. You won't be famous or infamous. You'll disappear." This sentencing marked the end of a long and painful journey for the families of both victims, who celebrated outside the courtroom. In July 2021, Strong gave important information about where Candace Fitzpatrick's body was. Acting on that info on November 4, 2021, he helped the police find a general area near Secreto Drive and Britannia Avenue East in Oshawa, where he said he had buried her. Then on November 8, 2021, the authorities found the remains. After a forensic examination, they confirmed on November 13, 2021, that the remains were indeed those of Candace Fitzpatrick. They announced this definitive identification in a press conference on February 16, 2022. Candace's father, William, still found it hard to believe. When asked if he ever thought he'd see this day, he responded, "No, never thought I'd see her remains." The reason for Armstrong's sudden change in behavior is still unclear, and there's speculation that he may have wanted attention or recognition for his actions. Despite the tragic circumstances that brought their families together, the Hache and Fitzpatrick families have supported each other throughout this difficult time, finding strength and comfort as they deal with the aftermath of these terrible events. While the cases of Rori Hache and Candace Fitzpatrick have been resolved, the police still suspect that Armstrong might be involved in the deaths of other women. In June 2022, investigators found clothing evidence in Adam's apartment, but they haven't revealed the specific details because their investigation is ongoing. This story is undeniably tragic and deeply disturbing. What's most unsettling is how Armstrong managed to avoid the police's attention while committing these terrible acts, living among people who were completely unaware of the darkness within him. His neighbors offered help and invitations to social events, not realizing the horrifying truth. The fact that this case was eventually uncovered through a twist of fate is truly terrifying. It makes you wonder if any signs were missed, chances to stop him, or preventive measures that could have saved potential victims from his crimes. What do you think could have been done to prevent this man from remaining free? Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section. If you have any other cases you'd like us to cover, we're eager to hear your suggestions. Please, guys, remember to like, share, and subscribe to Bizarre Cases for more compelling true crime stories.